may have found in an Egyptian tomb.
The objective of this particular mission was to find the knowledge which was left behind from an advanced culture.
I was one of the first to be recruited by the KGB.
I don't believe the soldiers realized the significance of what they were looking at.
Got orders, you have to do it.
The first hard evidence of an humanoid extraterrestrial life form.
Possible extraterrestrial contact at a distant time in an ancient land.
Remember, nobody knows my name.
See possible evidence of a mass alien abduction.
Papa!
Learn what could be the horrifying truth behind alien abduction. In 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin lifted off in a Soyuz space capsule and spent 45 minutes in orbit. For decades, we have believed that the first human beings in space were Russian. Is it possible, though, that centuries earlier, the first people to leave the Earth were ancient Egyptians? And did Soviet researchers learn this early in the 1960s? Recent evidence out of the former USSR indicates that indeed Russian agents were very curious about artifacts uncovered in Egypt. Artifacts which they believe suggest early contact between humans and beings not from this planet. Assumed the hunting ground for extraterrestrial life is above our planet. You watch the skies for UFOs. You probe the domain of deep space for the telltale signs of ET. Who would have thought to look underground for aliens? No one except the KGB. Dr. Viktor Ivanovich claims to hold degrees in astrophysics and neurology. Ivanovich says while serving in the Kremlin as advisor on advanced propulsion, he gained access to the archives of a KGB mission called Project Isis.
Project Isis, it was targeted at discovering Egyptian artifacts and knowledge that may have military applications. Isis was one of the several covert research missions that KGB was conducting during that time.
According to Ivanovich, during the course of the mission, a discovery was made that may well be the most important in the history of mankind.
There is no disputing the fact that a small group of Russian scientists, together with military experts on radioactivity and chemical warfare, discovered a tomb in Egypt in 1961. The record is clear on that point. But what was never disclosed was what they found inside the tomb. From the available evidence and highly placed sources, in the sarcophagus were the remains of an alien creature who died in Egypt about 10,000 years BC.
Ivanovich chronicles the purported KGB mission in a book to be published titled Project Isis, the KGB's discovery of the tomb of the visitor.
The point I'm making in my book is that the presence of this creature and the design of the pyramids and the whole pool of historical and scientific evidence shows that this particular visitation took place about 11,000 years BC.
Long before the Babylonians or the Greeks, before the gods of the Assyrians or those of Crete, long before all others, there was Egypt. The world owes much to the ancient Egyptians. They were the first mathematicians, the first astronomers. They gave the world the principles of geometry, the use of symbols to convey numbers. The first calendar was Egyptian, as was the first writing paper. The world's first libraries were found buried under the sands of Egypt. This is why the disclosure of Project ISIS could be momentous. For centuries, the land of the Nile has lured archaeologists. It's no different today. They could be analyzing antiquities that have long been studied, searching for new clues that may disprove old theories, or struggling to reconstruct the daily life of a culture from tiny fragments of the past. While much progress has been made, one fundamental question remains. The archaeological record of Egypt shows little evidence of the gradual development common to all civilizations. The Egyptians seem to have sprung fully formed around 2500 BC, with scientific knowledge far advanced for the time. A noted archaeologist likened it to building a Model T one day and the next the space shuttle. So how did the Egyptians know what the rest of the world would not learn for centuries, and know it in an historical sense immediately? It appears, some say, as if Egyptian civilization did not evolve from historical development, but was built on a legacy. There is some speculation the legacy was from the remnants of a lost civilization that perished in the biblical flood. Dr. Ivanovich contends Project ISIS discredited this theory. According to Ivanovich, the KGB uncovered evidence suggesting Egypt was founded on a heritage of wisdom from an extraterrestrial race. Coming up next, exclusive footage of what could be the discovery of the millennium.
I don't believe the soldiers realized the significance of what they were looking at. The first hard evidence of an humanoid extraterrestrial life form.
The austere building behind me once housed what was undoubtedly the world's largest and most feared intelligence agency. Why would the KGB be so interested in what many consider to be science fiction? The genesis of Project ISIS allegedly began in the post-war period of the 50s. From the blood-red ashes of World War II, a new Soviet state emerged. No longer was Russia a backward agrarian nation. The motherland was now a superpower and willing to prove it. Under the dictatorship of Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviets were determined to show the democracies of the West that communism was superior. It was a challenge America could not ignore.
The competition between the two superpowers was an immense drain on Soviet economy. Placing the man in space before the Americans was a great propaganda feat, but it cost billions in rubles. The same for the arms buildup. Each time America tested the nuclear bomb, Russia had to respond with a bigger one, again costing the Soviet government billions.
As the world watched and prayed, the two nations battled for technological supremacy.
Khrushchev knew that the so-called socialist camp headed by the Soviet Union could not keep up this pace. It did not have NATO's resources. That's when the KGB was ordered to investigate less costly means of technical advancement.
At the height of the Cold War, the KGB was the largest secret police and espionage force on the planet, with more than 300,000 agents. Under orders from the Kremlin, the KGB focused its considerable resources on areas that some would call fringe science. Unidentified flying objects was one area of deep interest. Allegedly, the Kremlin hoped the investigation of UFO reports could advance aeronautical design. The former Soviet Union was an ideal location for the study of unidentified flying objects. Russia had more UFO sightings than any other nation. The principal reason for the multitude of UFO cases is that Russian borders surrounded the largest landmass in the world. Of the reported sightings, the most compelling case is known as the Dalnogorsk incident.
It's the best documented crash because we do have the fragments. They have been analyzed. It was a small probe. It was not kind of a big object, but something crashed on a hill in Dalnogorsk in January of 1986.
Through analysis of the crash site, a computer simulation of the last moments of the doomed spacecraft was created. If we play the tape in slow motion, we can observe why the saucer-shaped design is so prevalent in UFO reports. Experts say a fixed-wing aircraft would have buried its nose in the ground and burst into flames. As one can see, the saucer design enables the space vehicle to skip and cartwheel over the field. The spacecraft would be damaged, but not destroyed. It's still not certain if the Dalnogorsk incident was the crash of a UFO, but the film you are viewing seems to support the theory. This exclusive footage was obtained through contacts with the Russian mafia. Allegedly, the film was stolen from the top-secret files of the KGB. Some believe it documents the Dalnogorsk recovery mission. Military personnel and KGB agents seem to be at the crash site of a saucer-shaped object. Appearing to be in charge of the operation is the man wearing the fur hat. We believe him to be a senior KGB agent. The KGB also investigated the power of psychics. Experiments were conducted to test the feasibility of gathering intelligence through mind control. Leading the paranormal division of the KGB was a man with a taste for blood.
The KGB research into the anomalous phenomena had begun in the 1920s, when a special laboratory, so-called dark room, was created. From the middle 1930s, Russian psychics had been persecuted under Stalinist regime. Gleb Boki, who was in charge of the paranormal phenomena for the KGB, was a sinister and cruel person who was known to drink human blood. The KGB had conducted psychotronic weapons research on prisoners that were sentenced to die and also political dissidents. When Gleb Boki and people who had studied the anomalous phenomena with him in the KGB were executed in 1937, all of the files were transferred, as far as we know, to the most secret archives of the KGB. However, the paranormal research went on. Under Khrushchev, great successes had been achieved in the Soviet Union with the paranormal. Some of the first biogenerators and machines to alter human minds came to the scene. The Americans were worried about Soviet research programs because they knew that the Soviet Union would not use it for peaceful means, that the Soviet Union was there to conquer and to overtake the United States.
UFOs, the paranormal, and Project Isis, all three were part of the Kremlin strategy of achieving military superiority.
According to the author, the film you are watching was found in the archives of Project Isis. Ivanovich claims it was due to the film's immense historical value that he chose to risk his life to smuggle it out of a heavily guarded facility. Ivanovich contends this footage documents the KGB's discovery and exploration of an Egyptian tomb. After this exclusive television broadcast, the film will reportedly be available only to research institutions. Those are the purported remains of the alien creature found in the tomb.
Our discovery in the Egyptian desert in the late 50s, early 60s is one of the most prominent and totally unexpected and most unbelievable, I would say, because we are talking about the first in history discovery of anthropomorphic alien extraterrestrial creature found in a sarcophagus.
But according to Ivanovich, the discovery of the alleged mummified extraterrestrial was not the original goal of the project. He claims the mission began as a quest for a mythical chamber of knowledge. One of the enduring legends of Egypt is that somewhere, perhaps inside the Great Pyramid or in a lost tomb, somewhere in Egypt is a chamber of knowledge containing the wisdom of gods who came from the stars. Reportedly, the KGB's mission was to find the chamber in the hope that it might contain information applicable to military technology. The Russians were not the first to search the antiquities of Egypt for ancient wisdom. In 820 AD, Sheikh Abdullah al-Mamun was the first to breach the massive stone of the Great Pyramid. The Sheikh was drawn by the legend that, concealed in the pyramid, was a record of the past and future of mankind. The Sheikh coaxed his terrified men up the dark passageway, but in the king's chamber, all they found was an empty sarcophagus. Some believe if there is a chamber of ancient wisdom, it will be found under the Great Pyramid. For years, there has been speculation about subterranean passageways running from the pyramid to the Sphinx. Recent seismic surveys suggest a mysterious chamber-like cavern lies below the Sphinx. This has led some to speculate that perhaps the legendary Chamber of Knowledge does exist.
Is there a storehouse of knowledge left behind by ancient visitors? Signs point to yes.
Coming up next.
It makes perfect sense. Egypt would be an obvious choice for the aliens who had to establish an outpost for planetary expeditions.
The vastness of the desert here is overwhelming. It was in this region, at the edge of civilization, that something profound may have happened over 2,000 years ago. Egypt was the first great civilization. Pharaohs ruled the kingdom for over 1,000 years. Who were these mysterious people? From where did they derive their power and wealth? Where did they find their wisdom?
The objective of this particular mission was to find the knowledge which was left behind from an advanced culture which predated this traditional Egyptian history. The team of archaeologists was composed of Egyptologists from Russian Soviet Academy of Science, which was one of the best schools of ancient cultures in the whole world. And in spite of that, the KGB leaders gave the project little chance for success.
I was one of the first to be recruited by the KGB. I don't know what was the interest in it. But anyway, you cannot say no to Комитет государственной безопасности, KGB. You got orders, you have to do it. So my recommendation was to start right there at the Giza Plateau.
A trip to Egypt is a humbling experience. The ancient monuments still cast their long shadow upon the works of man. The Giza complex includes the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Nearby is the Pyramid of Menkaure. Next in size to the Great Pyramid is the Pyramid of the Pharaoh Khafre. Many believe it was Khafre who ordered the creation of the Sphinx. Carved out of the bedrock, the colossal statue appears to be guarding secrets that lie beneath the sands. It took centuries to complete the complex of monuments on the Giza Plateau. It must have been an awesome vision. Towering pyramids, gigantic statues, temples, crypts, and causeways. Giza was a manifestation of the power of Egypt and the divinity of a living god called the Pharaoh. No monument better symbolizes the godlike power of the Pharaoh than the Pyramid of Khufu. For size and engineering precision, the Great Pyramid has never been equaled. The pyramid weighs roughly 6 million tons, 20 times the weight of the Empire State Building. Until the Eiffel Tower, the Great Pyramid was the tallest structure in the world. Over 2 million stones were used in its construction. No stone weighs less than a ton, and some as much as 30 tons. Inside, passageways connect the chambers, shafts run to the exterior. Today, the pyramid is rough stone, but it once had a mirror-like finish of masonry. It is believed the Great Pyramid was adorned with a top of solid gold. The sunlight dazzled the eye for hundreds of miles. For centuries, experts have speculated about the true purpose of the pyramids. Conventional theory claims the pyramids were symbolic gateways to the afterlife. Others believe the pyramid was an astronomical observatory. Some say a geographical survey instrument. One outlandish theory states the Great Pyramid was a grain elevator, but most experts do agree the pyramids were far more than just gigantic tombs.
Nobody's ever found evidence of a burial in a pyramid, and we still don't know how they were built.
Scholars had argued that the technology to construct massive pyramids might not have been available to people at the point in human history when these structures were built. The pyramid builders knew information that would not be rediscovered for centuries. For example, the pyramid's height corresponds to the distance from the Earth to the Sun. The pyramid was built within 4 degrees of the corners of the compass, a precision that has never been equaled. And amazingly, the Great Pyramid lies in the exact center of the Earth's landmass.
When I began my field research at Giza, I was immediately struck by the fact that whoever built the pyramids could determine longitude and latitude. This is amazing since the technology to fix longitude was not invented until the 1600s. But more to the point, the pyramids were constructed at the exact center of the Earth. Also the size. The pyramids are visible from an extremely high altitude. They can be seen from the moon. Plus, the pyramid is one of the best shapes for radar reflection. For these reasons, I advise the KGB the pyramids of Egypt were built for navigation by alien explorers.
It makes perfect sense. Egypt would be an obvious choice for the aliens who had to establish an outpost for planetary expeditions. The initial landing by an alien expedition team would pick a flat area with a few obstacles. Egypt would be an obvious choice since it's also in the center of the habitable mass of the Earth.
The principal evidence in support of his theory is the film. According to Ivanovich, the footage came from the maximum security archives of the KGB. The author accepted our request for an independent analysis. We asked Russian film expert Sergei Goncharov for his opinion.
This is the name of the factory that manufactures the motion picture film in the city of Pereslavl. This is the type of film type A2, which is the emulsion.
Goncharov analyzed the film emulsion for signs of fraud.
Now that we've looked at the cans, the next thing to do was to actually find out if the film itself had any markings on it. Okay, in the very beginning of the film, we have this word, which in Russian says начало, or the beginning, or the start. Okay, then we have the two bits of information which says plyonka number 267. Plyonka in Russian means emulsion or film, could denote the reel, the roll, or a batch, and this, of course, is the number. The next thing we see is this bit of information. Совершенно секретно, top secret archive of the KGB logo, and the word archive of the KGB.
A man who claims to have worked for the National Security Agency was consulted.
To determine the validity of any visual media these days, you must look for details that are in conflict with the facts. For example, the insignia on this officer's uniform. It matches that of a specialized Soviet military unit that served in Egypt during the construction of the Aswan High Dam. Until a few years ago, that information was classified.
He requested enlargements be made of individual frames.
And the frame that shows the shovel, those long-handled shovels, the Linoya Lopatka they were called, the soldiers hated them, very impractical. They were replaced with short-handled versions similar to those used by NATO forces, but not until the late 60s. This footage is reported to have been shot in 1961, so there is no conflict there. So either someone knew information not readily available outside of government channels, or went to a great deal of trouble and expense to fake it. Or the film may be authentic. However, let me caution you the KGB are experts at disinformation. But why would they wish to perpetuate such a fantastic hoax? Who knows? But it is not beyond their capabilities.
The KGB has a history of sophisticated counterintelligence. Could Project ISIS be a skillful fabrication by the KGB? But why would the Soviets want to perpetrate a hoax of this magnitude? Perhaps as a diversionary tactic, masking the real mission to Egypt. Whatever the truth, whether real or fake, we have learned that when investigating the KGB, it is best to keep an open mind to any possibility.
This is the period where military, after first safety precautions have been taken, entered without wearing gas masks, but that's what they do now was absolutely mistaken, and you will see why. Because they had to open sarcophagus after proper examination of the content.
Ivanovich has studied the film countless times and has no doubt that the footage is genuine.
And you see the fumes that turned out to be toxic come out. These are the remains, actually, of this extraterrestrial alien. So, and the fumes which are coming out, we will see it later, intoxicate one of the soldiers. Under such circumstances, under this particular condition, they could be very poisonous. And that's why they invited the team of this chemical warfare specialists to check the contaminated area again and assist this soldier who lost his senses. Those particular remains haven't been mummified. They were just dried with two types of salts. Natron, they called it, this mixture of two carbon dioxide salts. So, which is quite popular, which just absorbs the moisture from the corpse, and Egyptians used it for thousands of years. Doesn't look like aliens buried that particular alien. It looks like local primitive people found the body and just buried it according to their burial procedure. So it was not like a solemn funeral of an alien by an alien. So it probably, the body was found somehow and brought to this particular tomb without being mummified. So we have just a skeleton and but definitely anthropomorphic features, but by all means it's not human. Here we have the last period of evacuation of the most important samples of archaeological excavation in the tomb. So we have two Bedouins here, just they were invited as helps, quite absolutely neutral people. These are the most important pieces of evidence that were taken from the tomb after being inspected by the team of the scientists.
Coming up next.
Remember, nobody knows my name.
They'll never appear on TV.
When we return right after this.